Hello everyone, welcome to another amazing day at fmtraining.tv. I am here, Margaret Carlton, with the amazing Richard Carlton to discuss the equally fantastic and fabulous
I'm
FileMaker
only
platform.
half amazing. I'm half Nick.
You're not half Nick, you're Richard, which
I'm half Nick. I'm only half Nick, right? So yes.
Please.
Half Nick is on the job.
So despite Richard's insistence that he is nearly half a Nick, this is factually inaccurate. He is a wonderful, wonderful trainer and the reason why we don't fall asleep in our seats. So, in all seriousness, thank you. My name is Margaret Carlton. I'll be here with Richard Carlton today. Today we are covering a slightly more intermediate topic. Basically, we define intermediate developers as developers who are more concerned with their calculations. It's pretty common when you're an early developer to write a calculation, sort of let it run wild, like, I have made you be free, wander the earth. And then, it makes the earth go slower. This is not a good metaphor. But the idea basically is that you are training your basically writing your calculations to trigger when you want them to. And today's conversation is specifically about that, and specifically related to calculations that appear in FileMaker Starting Points tabs. Real quick, a reminder that we stream on 3 platforms. We stream on Discord, we stream on YouTube, and we stream on Twitch. We love questions. Please talk to us. It makes us lonely if you don't. We are a live stream, so we're all about dynamic interaction with our audience. The entire point here is to field your questions and train you, so please do that. Real quick, our live training schedule for the rest of the week, for rest of this week. Thursday and Friday is going to be Kyle Williams back-to-back. We got deep dive into advanced checkboxes and radio buttons. That'll be fun. And web viewer features and card window demo in FileMaker. So those will both be with Mr. Kyle. Those will sure to be fun. I'll be leading those as well. I don't know if Richard will be there hovering at all. Probably not. He is a busy, busy man. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is the beginning of the live code. I'm calling it the extravaganza because we got 10 days of it. Live code has basically graciously agreed or wanted to come on our live stream and to discuss how to basically make it so you can get FileMaker on Android, because that's never going to happen otherwise. So if you want your little wonderful FileMaker file on Android, this is going to be the conversation for you. I highly recommend it. We'll be doing that over a course of 10 days. So that'll be all we'll be seeing for the next chunk of time. Again, this is free. We do this 5 days a week. We do it pretty much free for you guys. It's an hour of free training on all sorts of wonderful topics. If you want to talk about something specific that doesn't come up, or if you just want to support us, we do have the amazing FileMaker bundle. It is 100+ hours of video content done by Richard himself, who I have just said is incredibly high energy and very entertaining. It's in like bite-sized pieces, 15 to 20 minutes, and it covers pretty much everything you need to know to become a really good FileMaker developer. So if you want to increase your own knowledge on that, I highly recommend that. Helps supports us, helps keeps us doing these free sessions, and you get a lot of excellent training out of it.
Today is an interesting broadcast. It was a topic suggested by you folks. This is not my topic. I was asked by someone to present on this, and really it's something I can do. It's not a horrifically difficult topic. It gets into this area of, once again, performance tuning. So if you're a brand new FileMaker developer, you build a solution, you just want it to work. And we've all built solutions that we live with, that we built when we were, I want to say younger. Could be younger if you've done it for a lot of years, but you built previously. So if you've got Megan or some of the other people like that, they built them maybe in the last year or so. And then you learn more and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I built that giant pile of doo-doo. But it still works, so you kind of live with it. Well, one of the things that you realize as you start to build a FileMaker solution, and for example, we use Starting Point as an example for this, is that, so this is on screen here, you can see this is FM Starting Point, and I'm going to bring this on screen. I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit. And what I want you to be able to look at is that when people build solutions, for example, if they want to say, like, show me the related invoices and things like that, the way that in a very basic world, and this is even on the certification test, you would wire up a calculation field down here that contains a total of the related records. And the thing is that it's is for FileMaker to display the record on screen to you, the local data is instantaneous. For FileMaker to show some related data is not necessarily too bad, but if you want to total it, slice it and dice it, average it, add up, subtract it, do a lot of stuff, which is what's happening down here. We see the related notes. We see that there are notes here. We say that there's actually 371 contacts here that are related to this person right here. I do have, let me go to layout mode real quick. I have been working in this sample, the starting copy of starting point, getting this demo ready. And one of the things I ran into is I defined some new fields and they are encroaching upon my area here. So I'm gonna, and if we have any audio breakup, Margaret, just definitely interrupt and let me know. So I am in Dallas, Texas. I am 1,000 miles away from this FileMaker server. It's okay. It works decently. But this database has 15 gigabytes of data and millions of records in it. So this is kind of a database that's optimized for this. In fact, this database, the one that we did the Cloud Melt live stream with, where we actually attempted to have, we had 261 people logged on the server, and we really couldn't melt it unless everyone started running reports at the same time, like reports that averaged millions of records and things like that. So this was that file. And so what you need to understand about this is that FileMaker is really great at delivering this data up here, the local data, the container data. It's giving us a thumbnail of that, not of the complete picture. If I pop the complete picture, I click that. I want to open that up. There's a delay, and actually these photos are actually pretty small anyway. That's interesting. So you could actually put a large photo in there, and it would still thumbnail it down. It would be pretty performant. One area that we left in starting point, which was, it was so nice, is these totals. It just shows you, like, if I just ramp up here, and I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit so everyone can see this, if it'll let me do this. So if I'm going to jump ahead, say a bunch of records, so I'll go up here, I'm going to say I'm going to jump ahead randomly to record 224,511. This is the first name town, last name Horace is this person's name. And so, oh, no, there's a different name there. It's flipping around. What is it doing? I'm wondering why it's flipping. So let me zoom back out. I don't know if I hit the keyboard shortcut for next record. Maybe I did that. Yeah, I must have gone forward. Keyboard shortcuts for zooming in and out may be interfering with FileMaker. We don't put photos on all the images, but there are some of them are in here. But we do see we have 5 notes in here. We have 13 related contacts, right? Pretty straightforward stuff. Now, what happens here is that FileMaker had to run and display all this information. And so what we end up having is a situation is I flip forward in record. So I'm gonna flip it. I'm gonna bang my finger. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do it kind of loudly so you can hear me hit it. And then you'll see the delay on screen is how long this takes to display. So I'm gonna click right here. I'm gonna hit it, pop, delay. So you see it pop, display, pop, display, a little bit of delay, pop, display, pop, display. And so it's not horrible. There's a solid kind of two seconds there. But those 2 seconds, that's why we kind of left these calculations in here. So what we found out is that entire delay right there, that entire delay is a function of these totals being calculated here across all these tabs. So if I go to, this is before, so this is like the native version of kind of FileMaker. If you go down to the native version of starting point, right? If you go press this after button right here, which is a specialized version, I'm here for demos. I press the after button. It's a copy of this layout, identical copy of layout, except we remove those calculations. So then if I'm going to click it, and then once again, listen, so and watch the delay. Click. The performance, and I'm actually across the country here. So this is from a very long ways away, and of course we'll be running towards a backup. We may be running close to backups, but the performance is about normally double. And if the server is anywhere near close, right now it's almost, it's click, bam, click, bam. It's less than a second, right? And if the server is somewhat localized, it's pretty much instantaneous. If I was testing this between Santa Clara and our office, it was like 30 milliseconds. It was like instantaneous. I think we're probably 70, 80, 90 milliseconds here. It's a fairly slow connection. Still working pretty damn good, but by us getting rid of those totals, we get the performance improvement. We don't need it. So every time we were hitting this, every time we press this button, FileMaker was running a calculation here, zzz, and then here, zzz, and here, zzz, and right? It does all this. And you're like, oh, but I like those numbers. They're so nice. You can come over here and you can see how many you've got. They're super valuable. So you get into this mode in the world of FileMaker where you've got the world of trade-offs. It's what senior engineers do all the time. A beginning FileMaker person just tries to make it work. An intermediate person is trying to make the code a little bit make more sense and provide precise controls over it. And then as a senior person, you start dealing with these trade-offs more aggressively. But what it is that we can put these on screen, but then we have this performance drop, right? So it's here, and then we know that at least half of whatever delay we have is this thing chunking, trying to develop and change these numbers and update them. And these numbers are updating in real time. So what I thought I would do is have a short conversation with you about this. One is to remove these items. And two is we had done this demo previously. Some of you were asking about this. And then what could we do to mitigate that? And the idea, once again, was this PSOS idea, right? And so what I did is I defined, I'm going to go to layout mode right here. So this is before starting point, the native version of FileMaker, the before calculation right here. Then after we remove it, and then after we removed it, but then we put it back in and we dump the calcs on PSOS. So what does that do for us, right? And basically what it should do for us is basically allow us to go at full speed still, but not have to wait for the results, right? And so what you get into a situation where, and I can wire it up here and you can see what's going on, but right now I'm in the after screen. I haven't run the script yet. The script is up here. We could wire it into a script trigger, but the point is I'm not trying to put too many layers of complexity. I want you to see what's going on. If I press this button, something happens and then a number gets updated, right? I've wired this up only for the first two. So if we wanted to go through it in person, right, we can wire up the rest of these, but I wired up the first two. The rest of these are still going to be blank. Now, if I flip forward here to update the information, so you could put a button on here, say to update, right? But a better way might be to do is to auto trigger it. So what you could do is you could go on to, I'm going to go to layout mode here. Let's talk about triggers, layout based script triggers. And so what we want to do is we say we're on this layout right here. These are the values that are being set. They're just on here. I define tab one value, there's number fields, right? And so the goal is that we're going to run a calculation and load them in there. They are local. These are local fields to this record. So they're not really globals, right? They're local fields to the record. And the whole idea is that as you go to the record, it's going to show you the previous calculations, which should be pretty close. But then it's going to run a script and update it for you, and you'll probably see the screen flash. And that's how your users know that you're getting the immediate information, the immediacy of what we can give them immediately without delay. Then a second or 2 seconds or 5 seconds later, the screen will flash, if it can, and give you updated information, right? Margaret, if you have questions along the way, let me know.
I am looking. I don't see anyone yet. A lot of people saying hi, but...
Okay. Am I coming through kind of clear for you, more or less?
You're clear. Like your like face video is a little bit chunky, but like the movement I can see pretty well, and your voice
and the audio is good. Okay, yeah. Coming back to me, the audio is really chunky, so the outbound traffic in here is not good for whatever reason. So that's fine. So I don't need to hear you. That's fine. It's totally good. If you have a question, make sure you throw your hand up and we get the question. So these are number fields down here. They're local. And so what I want to do is I want to go to, I'm on layout. We're going to go to range. Where am I? I'm having a brain lockdown. Oh, script triggers right here. So I want to go to script triggers for this layout. They really should be layout options, right? In fact, where did I find that at? Where was that at? It was under layouts? It's not even under layout. I'm in layout mode. This is one of those moments where you don't do a lot of FileMaker. You come back to FileMaker and you can see the gaping problems in the user interface, right? And there's a couple of them that we're going to run into. One is that we're doing a layout specific action. We're changing a layout specific action, yet it's under format. Why? I don't know, right? And so this is, these are on objects right here. So where am I? I'm spacing on that. Okay, so these are the object layouts. That's correct. So that's in the right spot. So where am I? Hello. Layout setup. Is it buried under layout setup? Where are the layout triggers at? Hello. You would think it'd be a layout trigger. Oh, they're buried under layout setup. That does make sense. Okay, so my complaining, I'll shut up now. So what you have right here is, if I can make it, can I make the window bigger? No, it's there. How come I can't make it bigger? All right, I'm not going to even, I don't even know why that is a thing. So what I'm going to go here is I've got an on layout enter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do on record load. And what I'm going to do is on record load, I'm going to have it run our update tab count script. It's a very basic script. We can go through that script in a moment. I'm going to have it do this. So it's going to go on layout enter when we first enter here the first time. Then I don't think this one will fire anymore after that. So it makes sense it's in here, but I should be able to. Yeah, once again, it's between me wrestling with the keyboard and stuff. So there we go. So I said okay on that. We go back to browse mode. So what should happen now is that we haven't gone through the whole database and run this. So if I jump ahead, like I'm randomly going to jump ahead, it's going to load this record, and then it's going to display it, and it shows it, right? So now, am I on the after? I am on the after, right? So I go over here. And so it's doing it pretty quickly. I'm finding that very interesting. Is it running the script? So what we should do is we should do the script debugger. I'm going to turn the script debugger on so we can watch it run. Because I'm very suspicious when it updates, because during my testing, it wasn't running that fast. So I probably broke something. So if I go to the next record, okay, and then it's going to go, aha. So it's going to come down here. It's going to say, can I run it on the script on PSOS, right? And it says yes. So it's going to, it's waiting for completion on, right? So what it's doing, the PSOS is running and getting the numbers, and the display, the layout is waiting to display, which means we still have this pause. In fact, the pause would be worse. Well, it'd be a wash. You still have a pause. So what we want to do is I'm going to say edit the script. Hopefully you folks can see this. I can zoom in a little bit if that helps. So I'm going to say edit the script, a little pencil up here. I'm going to come over here. What I want to do is come over to the script. I want to click, check it. I want to check the off right there. And then I want to save it. When I say I want to save it, it says, hey, there's a script that's running. Would you like to halt the one that's running because you're like going to change the script? It's already running. It's going to screw everything up. We're really confused. Would you like to halt, perform? Yes, we're going to halt the current one. We got the off right here. So it's not going to wait for completion. This is what we call in the U.S. military as fire and forget. We release the weapon, we commit ordnance, and then we let it go on its merry way, and then we're off doing something else. And so we're not going to watch it hit the target. We're going to go and move into something else. And so then it will come back and give us a result. So yes, we went and did this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that. I'm going to go and close this right here. Then I'm going to go forward another script. And what we should do is if I go forward, there'll be see, there we go. So we get the instant satisfaction of being able to do this, and it gets to it when we can, right? And so if I click faster here, I'm actually clicking faster than the PSOS can keep up, right? Makes sense. And so eventually it catches up, right? So it does the counts, it comes back. It does the counts, it comes back. So it's a way of offsetting the penalty. Now, assume that PSOS is not available, right? So this actually covers a lot of topics. If you're more of a beginner FileMaker developer, this is really kind of neat. So PSOS is perform script on server. So if we have to run the script locally, it adds overhead. If we have to do the calculations, doesn't matter where the calculations are at. If the calculations are in a script or custom function, it doesn't matter. If the client has to do them, there's a performance hit. If the client is waiting for the server to do them, there's probably a performance hit. So the idea is that you want the client to display the data without the performance hit. So we display what we can instantly, and then we say server go off, update these values, and then you get this flash of information. It flashes, right? This little flash, right, going on. I normally hate flashy interfaces, like it's flashing. Why is it flashing? It looks so unprofessional. But in this case, that flash is telling you you have updated data. It's fresh. It's updated. It's more fresh than what it was a second ago. So the script that we have, really quick here. Once again, this is this is like the fundamentals, right? You can't get to the world of Nick unless you understand this kind of stuff. So in this case, what we have right here, I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. This is a script that we're calling. And what the script does, this has a wrapper around it. So this is a wrapper. It's a script that calls itself. And so what happens is it's actually very cute. The first time I ever saw this, it was from Kevin Lane. Was it Kevin Lane? Kevin at Skeleton Key had written a blog. This is like 15 years ago or whatever it was. It's a wrapper app. So this is the code that has to execute, that does the calculations for us right here. This is it right here, okay? And this is what we want it to run. We want to basically forget about the performing, the find, and things like that. What we want to do is run these calculations right here, which have in them either a summary or a count. Basically, a count is effectively kind of like a summary, very slow function. It's going to do it on tab 1, tab 2, tab 3, 4, 5, right? And commit the record. This is the essential stuff that we've removed. Now this this right here, it says if there is a server, and if everything is good and we think it's server and it's fine, what we want it to do is call PSOS and run it. So the server runs it for us. So we call the same script. When the server gets here and runs the same script, it's going to come down and go, hey, what's a pattern count? What's a client count? All this kind of stuff. It's going to determine it's actually on the server and not the client. And so it's going to say, it's going to skip over this and come down here to else, and it's going to run this. So if we don't have server running, we're not using server, it will skip this and come down here. And if you're already on the server, then the server's not going to call itself. Does that make sense what I said? It's kind of I mean, you can tell the server to run it for you, but the server can't really tell itself to run it for you, and then itself, and itself, and it's like, it only allows you to call itself once. Does that make sense, right?
Yes. We do have a quick question from David. MySQL with FM is much faster? ?
Okay. The answer is the question is SQL going to be faster? SQL will not be faster. Okay, so there's really two parts to this question. First is the no part, right? So sorry, David. This is intermediate training, not advanced training. So from the standpoint that in order to learn this, we can either do it with low code. This is low code over here, despite what anyone thinks. This is low code. We were saying to do low code, we can load pro code with SQL and then try to roll that in. Not the intent. That being said, to answer David's actual intended question is, will SQL execute faster here? Generally, the answer is no, okay? SQL will only be faster if you're trying to build this report ad hoc, one, and you haven't built any relational table occurrences to support it. So in order for this to work, for these calculations to be done, in this case, we have to, I'm going to zoom in right here. So bear with me, David. This is the answer you're looking for. This is it. We always say this, and people forget, and they hear the word SQL, and since it's magical and it's pro code, it must be faster. It's not. Frequently, it's not any faster because FileMaker doesn't natively think in SQL. It has to translate into its own understanding, then back to SQL. It adds a whole layer of complexity to it. But this right here is based, so for us to do this in low code, we have to have a relationship that will allow us to do this, right? The only benefit, there's two real benefits to SQL. One, you already know it, and you're familiar with it, which is not, once again, the basis of this daily training. If you ask Nick to come in, the only person that comes in here and gets lathered up and excited about SQL, realistically, is Kyle, who will be here the next 2 days. Outside of Kyle, very few people that do training in the FileMaker platform think that the first thing you should learn is SQL. If you want to learn SQL, don't use FileMaker. Don't use it. You're wasting your time. You just are, right? I mean, you can get a lot more done with FileMaker, but that's not the point. People who want it's like wrestling with a greased pig. Any of you have ever gone to a fair and actually tried to wrestle and catch a greased pig? They say, here is a pig in a fenced area, and they grease it down, and they say, if you catch the pig, we'll give you $100. Okay? And you have 20 people in there, and you got 60 seconds to catch this pig. It is impossible to catch the pig because they put grease on it, and it's smooth and slick, and it's just impossible to catch. And it's the same thing with this, right? It really is the same thing with this. You don't want to go down the road of doing SQL with FileMaker. It's just, but why? But if you know SQL, then go and do like Ruben. Well, Ruben's kind of a weird guy, so let's forget Ruben for a second. But if you have a legit professional coder, why use FileMaker? There are reasons. Talk to the lawyers. There are reasons that you can learn reasons, right? But like if you could if you could work as an Oracle developer and charge $300 or $400 an hour, why work in FileMaker and charge $200 an hour, right? Now, I would tell you that in a lot of cases, FileMaker skills are more valuable. You can get more done faster, right? But that's not the point, right? The whole SQL thing. So where the benefit is with SQL is, one, you know it, or you don't have the relationships already built on the relational diagram. So if I zoom in here, there's already a TO5 connected, and I know Larry's been working on his anchor buoy. So this is a TO5. It's a child off the TO5 anchor, right? If I go into field definitions, I go to relationships, I come over here. Since I've already built all this stuff, right? So here's the TO5, whatever it is, TO5, and it was C. Since this is already built, and it's already built, then my code will execute pretty quick. The one thing that SQL does allows us to generate that without having the relationship built. So if the relationship wasn't already built and you could ad hoc throw it together, then there's a benefit to SQL, but you still have to learn it, and it's professional code, right? Once again, it's this interesting area in the world of FileMaker, right? It's pro code and low code, and Claris is wrestling with Claris has kind of an identity crisis right now, trying to understand. They understand what they are, but trying to articulate that to everyone, and me articulating it to you, and you kind of understanding. There's like this low code kind of area, and there's this pro code, and where do they offset? And a lot of the training here, we blur those lines horribly all the time. Kyle is going to slaughter the low code pro code line tomorrow like never before. Next 2 days, he's going to slaughter it, right? You won't be able to tell where low begins and ends and pro begins and ends, right? Because he mashes it all together for best effect. Kyle is super effective in the platform. That's the benefit. It's low code until he needs to dig deep. And Kyle likes to dig deep early, and he goes right into pro code. He's super effective doing that. This platform is tremendously effective, right? So does that answer the question?
Yes, so we kind of have a little bit of a follow-up one. He said, I thought you set up SQL on a background server tables and you work everything else with FM. I thought you set
David
up...
Angel from Angel City Data, or different David Angel? That David Angel. Okay, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
So
I thought you set up SQL in a background server, parentheses, tables, and you work everything else with FM, question mark.
That is not fundamentally the default of the FileMaker platform. The FileMaker platform is not a SQL database. Okay, it's its own proprietary engine. Okay, Claris built some commands to support SQL because there were a lot of people like Kyle and Ruben who knew SQL, and these people were whining to Claris like, "Hey, you're really great if you did SQL." And so Claris knew they would never fully embrace SQL, at least not anytime soon. And so what they did is they created a couple commands that allowed the SQL people to come in and do searches. The SQL commands that FileMaker supports are only read-only, the read-only command. They're finds and sorts and reads. There's no editing or deleting of data. So a true SQL data set, SQL is just a language basically to interact with the data. Imagine a giant Excel spreadsheet, and then you can interact with it. Go get me this field, relationally connected this, sort by this, and bring this back, and then whatever, right? That's what SQL is. So SQL is reading data, finding data, sorting data. It's CRUD, right? Create, edit, delete, CRUD. Create, read, delete, and edit, whatever. CRUD, whatever you want to call it, right? And so the SQL and FileMaker doesn't support all that, right? Now, if you want to build a back-end system in SQL, so it's in Microsoft SQL or MySQL and it's free, and then you have FileMaker Connect on the front end to build you an interface so that you could do that. That's extra work. And you'd want to have a good reason for doing that. Once again, why you would do that, we're kind of way off in the weeds now. Why you would do that is a broader conversation. It's like, should I use FileMaker server on Mac server, Windows server, or Linux, or should I use FileMaker Cloud? I shot 5 or 6 videos this morning already about that. And so trying to understand that. So why would you use SQL as a backend? There's reasons to do it. But once again, then that's very much on the deep end of the pool, right? I mean, if we want to have a conversation about that, that needs to be a separate live stream, I think. But yeah, FileMaker fundamentally is its own proprietary engine, and that's really not going to change anytime soon. Even when they build their new engine, it's on MongoDB or whatever they're doing in the future. That's still going to be a MongoDB that's been churned through and gone through some sort of meat chewing. It's like making sausage. No one wants to see how they make sausage, right? They're going to put Mongo database, DB, and they're going to churn it through some sort of sausage maker and then turn it into FileMaker. Okay. So no, I don't see that just being like a SQL, like an equivalent SQL system. If you want a SQL database, go get MySQL, right? So, and then have a backend for that. You could, so once again, big, totally different conversation, right? So, yeah, but no. I mean, I'm not using SQL because it's not normally in my wheelhouse. And in this case, it wouldn't offer me a performance improvement, okay? It's not going to magically be faster because I already have the relationship right here. It exists right there. And all I have to do is tell FileMaker to fundamentally give me the count and the summary of it. It'll do that just as fast as doing the SQL. But SQL, like, initially back, and I told this story, starting point back in when SQL first came out, Todd Dignan, one of my senior engineers, came and goes, God, the SQL stuff is the most amazing shit ever. And I didn't know enough about it. I go, yeah, I totally agree. It's the most amazing stuff ever. And Todd goes, we should put it in starting point. So Todd puts it in starting point as a senior engineer. It's great. I've added this stuff to starting point. Then he walks off because he's doing senior engineer projects at RCC. Meanwhile, the back end team, the tech team, and the junior team is supporting it. And we start getting complaints that starting point starts getting progress bars under certain things. Turns out the SQL was processing 40,000 records, right? Well, if you time FileMaker processing the 40,000 records and SQL processing them, the speed was about the same. Okay. And so it wasn't so much that SQL was bad. It just didn't magically, it's not like magical unicorn blood. It doesn't magically solve things, right? At least in the world of FileMaker. It doesn't magically make things instantly faster. The goal is to take the processing away from the client and either remove it entirely because you don't need it. Ask yourself that question. Or offload it to some other process, offload it to a startup script, offload it to a robot that runs in the middle of the night or once an hour, right? We had a PayPal live stream the other day where we were talking about how we do PayPal. In RCC, we have a copy of starting point that does orders and stuff. And once an hour, the robot runs a loop and it checks every open invoice that was sent through PayPal to see if it's been paid. And if it does, it does an API call, talks to PayPal, brings the data back, marks it as paid, and sends a Slack notification out and does all this other stuff. Okay. So we didn't want the client sitting there doing that. Like if you bring up an invoice and then it runs off the check and then 10 seconds later, you could flip the record, like flip a record. You got to wait 10 seconds for it to update. That's horrible. So you have to offload that processing. That's the whole conversation about offloading the processing. Right. And this is just another way of doing it. So David, I can't hear you. I can't see you. I'm not being short with you. I'm concerned that I have not been more clear about this previously, and somehow you're thinking along these lines of that SQL is just fundamentally faster in FileMaker. SQL might be fundamentally faster in a different data engine. Okay, I think MySQL can just trounce the crap out of FileMaker in terms of processing millions of records, but you cannot build a CRM in FileMaker or customize a CRM in SQL nearly as fast as you can build that value into FileMaker. FileMaker has much higher value because you get the solution done faster. It just doesn't scale to billions of records real quickly, right? Or easily, right? It scales really quick to millions, right? Very, very many millions because we have them right here, right? So this day, if we go to tables and I look at the list of tables here, there's a little delay while it does that. Hello. And then I zoom in on this. And so one of you showed me the shortcut the other day. Thank you very much for that. So this is our sample database. 120,000 records there, 1.8 million records in that one, 780,000 or almost 800,000 there, 5.7 million there, invoice line items. 1.19 million invoices. I mean, there's some serious data in here, folks. So FileMaker works, it scales, but you have to be a little bit thoughtful about it, if that makes sense. Okay.
Okay. I think that answered the question. So we should.
Yeah, I'm not mad. I'm not mad at David anyway. I'm like, how did I ever give the impression? Unless Nick said that, but I know Nick has an abstract hate of SQL because he doesn't want to learn it, right? And he doesn't see the value in it. And the problem is Nick's response is an allergic reaction to people who say, "Oh, use SQL." So Nick takes the opposite tact almost always. He's like an allergic response. He just explodes. I, on the other hand, tried to objectively tell you where it would work. And objectively, it works good in FileMaker. If you have an ad hoc report, you're not going to need to run a million times. Or you want to create a report and you don't want to put the TOs and the relationships in the table occurrence, the relation graph. If you don't want to add extra stuff in there, but you still want to report, then SQL is the only way to do that, right? So understand, one, we identify, so let's talk about beginner moving to intermediate development. One, you build something and it works. Two, you take it and you share it with people. And then a lot of people either add a lot of records to it, or you get a lot of people, or the server is somewhere way else like it is here. Remember, this server is a not a fast server. This is a Mac. This is a 8-year-old Macintosh being a server in California in my office in Santa Clara. And I am 1,300 miles away. It's one of the worst scenarios you have, and it's still pretty much kicking. So that speaks volumes about the fact we've gone through the optimization with Starting Point. That's why Starting Point's special. It's not just some, like other companies, like, hey, Starting Point, we have our own CRM. It's like, no, you don't, right? You don't have this. So about the tab. So we have the before, which is the default behavior of FileMaker, default behavior Starting Point, or even the Clara Starter Solutions have these in there typically, which are really valuable. Then you realize that there is a performance hit with these things. And as you're clicking through, there's a delay as you click, delay, click, display, click, display, click, display. That's about a second and a half. And then we turn it off, and then we go click, display, click, display, click, display, click, display, click, display, click, display. The proof's in the pudding, baby. Right? I don't have to sell it. It sells itself, right? That right there is like, okay, get rid of those. But then you're like, I really want them. So now you come over here to after. And so then you see it. It's click, display, flash. Click, display, flash, right? Click, display, flash. Click, display, flash, right? And that way, that's what you have going, right? Does that make sense? So definitely interesting. Definitely an interesting tack on that. So offloading the work to the script. Once again, the script has a wrapper script around it. You could just say, call, like what you could do here, right? You could do this. You could simplify this whole thing down alternately. I'm duplicating the script, and I'm going to zoom in here. So we got a wrapper script, but at the end of the day, all you really needed to do is, let me get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of this. All your script has to do is do this, okay? Just all the script. Tell the server to do the code for you. And then, so that's there's that. And then you'd have a server-side script, right? I'm going to duplicate it one more time. We'll call this, we'll call it counts. This will be the client one here, if I can do this. We'll call this client. Those of you who are not familiar with PSOS, this would be the server part of it, right? Okay. And so you're like, okay. So then what we do is we set the strip trigger to, instead of activating this one, we activate this one. And if you look at this one, you tell it to call the server one. So this one here calls this one. That's all you have to do, okay? The problem is, in a situation like this, if the server isn't running, or it's a local file, or the server's having an issue, or whatever it is, you want it to be able to roll back over to the local client as a backup, right? As a backup process. Because if the server is down or they're running it locally, like Nick sometimes does this with his some of his Launchpad sample files, people are like, hey, it doesn't work, right? And it's because Nick has coded, it's so dependent upon PSOS that it won't run locally. You have to put it on the server, then use it from the server. Then you can call the server and say, hey, server, run the script for me, right? Really great. But what you want to do in an ideal world is have an automatic failback. So this one, if we run this right here, if this script fails right here, nothing happens and the numbers don't update. Maybe that's not a problem. But what I did appears, I kind of did 2 training moments in one, or 3 training moments in one. This one right here, it calls itself, okay? It's going to call itself. So when the client runs, it's going to come down here. It's going to, and it sees that it can call the server. It's going to call the server, and then it exits. That's it. The client calls the server like this, and then it exits out here. Does that make sense what I said right there? It sees that the server's available, it calls the script on the server, and then it exits. And then on the server gets the script, and it says, oh, I'm on the server, I'm running. And it says, oh, I'm not a client, so I'm going to come down here and run the else. And then it runs the actual code. So it's one script that does both on the server and the client. But what's really great is that if you're on the client and the server has failed for some reason, the client will still run the code. And so what we do on the client, I added these pieces in here. I pop a new window. I go to the correct layout. I go to a maintenance layout. Very important. I go to a maintenance layout. I don't want to be on a layout with other accidental script triggers. I want a layout with nothing on it, like a butt naked layout. So if I come over here, we want a butt naked. Here it is right here. Here's the layout right here. It's called maintenance 05. All I did was I created a layout. It's attached to the same T05. So it has the same relational connection. So Larry, you follow me here? Is Larry here? Is Larry my Marines? Are my Marines here, Margaret?
Yes, they are.
Okay, well, this is for Larry because Larry's going to ask a question. So this is a layout that's attached to T05, which is the same anchor was driving the other one. So I'm going to pop a new window here. I'm going to pop a new window. And I'm going to come down here. And so once again, we're back to anchor buoy. So all this stuff is self-reinforcing. So here is, doesn't matter. Here's till 40 with the after. So these both are driving off of right here. They're both attached to this table occurrence right here. Oh, my finger has to go the other way. There we go. There we go. Okay, great. It's attached to this, and they're talking to things here. But on screen, so we understand they're both attached there. I'm going to do one discard the changes there. But this one has a lot of extra stuff on it, which can slow it down, and it's displaying related data. This one is super fast because all I put is like the name on here, and it's showing no related data, and there's no triggers on it, right? No triggers at all, which gives you the fastest possible performance for that script to run. Even though we're offloading it to the server, we still want to run as fast as possible. And if the server can't do it, or it's not available, or PSOS has crashed, or whatever, the client will still run it. We still want to be as fast as possible. So we add this new command in here that says, pop a new window, go to the layout, perform a find, which is it's kind of unnecessary for the local client because the local client knows it's on, right? The right record, right? Makes sense? But the server doesn't know what record you're on. So we pass the server, when we call it up here, we pass the script parameter. We say, this is the contact record we're interested. Go process that for us, right? So it only does the one record. It does them. It pops a new window. It goes to the really light layout. It performs a find for the ID. If it can't find it, I don't do any error capture in there. You could make that more robust, but do you care, right? Under what criteria would it not work? Then you go through a bunch of set fields. These are contingent upon the record not being locked. So if I flip into a screen real quick and I start editing, the server is going to try to set it, but it won't be able to set it, so the numbers don't get updated. It's not the end of the world, right? So there's a lot to unpack here. This is a very deep intermediate conversation, right? Not intended for Kyle or Moki or TK or other people who are kind of more senior people. Margaret, questions?
Yes, we got one from Cameron a little bit ago. Would this be a good use for a single repeating field instead of having a lot of separate tab fields for the counts?
I don't know you're going to buy anything from that. I mean, you could. Why? I don't know. I can't think of why it would be. There's no performance benefit. Right? There's no performance. I mean, you could, yeah, there's no question. Listen, I mean, so I could be as smart, but I don't want to be as smart. I'm trying to be as straight as possible. I can't think of a practical benefit to doing this like that, because what you'd have to do is, because remember, we're on the after, I think we're on the after here. We're on after. If I click on this, this tab control, and I'm going to zoom in here. So we're referencing that text field, right? So in order to reference it, you'd have to come into the calculation over here. You have to specify. And then instead of referencing the field, you'd have to reference the repetition of the slot of that field, right? But yeah, I mean, you could do it that way. It's just, I don't think you bought yourself anything, and it's harder for someone behind you to come follow to put it in, right? I mean, You could. I mean, there's no reason you can't. I just don't. If you want to have another junior developer, someone come behind you, say you're Jake Sheely and he's teaching Megan and Megan wants to come behind him and work on stuff. Jake should not be making the stuff as complicated as possible, right? Some of you folks, and I've had to have this conversation with some of you, I'm not going to name names. Best developer on the planet, the best professional code developer on the planet is someone who fundamentally understands that they need to build the code. And if they go on vacation, the customer is not, okay? If they go and they get by a bus and they're killed. I've had 2 or 3 engineers die on the job over 33 years, okay? It's very sad. It's very unfortunate. And you have to, suddenly they're gone and they're not coming back. It's kind of this tragic thing. So if they leave, you want someone to come behind you who doesn't have to, have a seance with your dead soul, wherever the hell it's at, to figure out how the hell your code works, right? You want the code to be as simple as possible, to be as commented as possible, to be as simple and unnecessarily complicated as possible, right? So, for example, in the world of FileMaker, how many FileMaker developers actually know how to do SQL? It's a very small minority. So in the event that, say that I want to build starting point, I'm going to build brand new. I'm going to kick it. I'm going to put RCC out of business. I'm going to create a better CRM, but I'm going to put a lot of other advanced stuff in it because the CRM, starting point's pretty damn good. So we're going to have to come up with some really magical. So I'm going to put some advanced JSON there. I'm going to put some advanced. I'm going to get a plugin in there. I'm going to put some PHP in there. I'm going to put some monkey bread in there. I'm going to put some SQL in there. I'm going to put all this stuff in there. And then I want someone else to follow my footsteps and work on it, right? Because that's what a great developer does. They don't code stuff so horribly that no one can follow them, right? It's a really hard thing to do when all you're trying to do is protect your job, right? I understand that, folks. But as a person, as part of a team, I'm encouraging you to look beyond your immediate paycheck. Very rarely will someone just be fired and replaced with a junior engineer. That just doesn't happen, okay? So it's better for you to build the code that's easier to understand. It helps the people that come behind you out. And then if you go on vacation or you leave for a year or two and come back, or don't work on it for 2 or 3 years and come back, you have to remember what the hell you invented. And if you made great training for the person to come behind you, that also helps you learn it and relearn what you did faster. So I don't know. I beat that one to death too. Sorry. Go ahead, Margaret.
We have kind of more of a suggestion than a question, but if we're done with today's topic, for the most part, we can pick it up. But I'm not sure.
Well, you have to look at I can't see any questions.
Well, I know. I'm just making sure that I don't want to completely derail us. But from D Sutton, any suggestions? I got 2 buzzes, which is why I'm talking about it. Any suggestions to source control FileMaker development, like a GitHub, or maybe some way to version control?
I am not the person to ask that question, Joe.
Okay.
D Sutton, I know that you love me and you're glad you're here. I'm thank you, but I really need to ask that. I would send that question. I could ask a pause on air. Are you going to be a pause on air? I'm going to be a pause on air next week. I could kick that one around because the people out there, pause on air, will be the kind of people who do that kind of stuff. I'm all for having modular code. That's what a lot of the add-ons are. That's what the Wolfpack's about. Some of those other things, like Kyle's done the thing where he saves his code and recycles it. And Kyle's got his way of doing it. Christian's got his way of doing it. And I guess you could do GitHub to a point. FileMaker is becoming more codified, right, where it's really code and you can extract it out and do stuff with it. If it's heading that way, it'll be more so in the future. But it's not really super easily integrated with GitHub at the moment, and that is my impression. Right? If it was so easy to do, then you'd have more than 12 people doing it. If you go into the entire FileMaker community and how many people are actively using GitHub to source code and manage your stuff in FileMaker, you probably have a handful of people at Selenium just because they would find that entertaining and great the way they are. A couple people maybe at Codance, and another, I would say less than 50 people worldwide do it that way, be my guess. It's not a lot because it doesn't really super easily integrate. And that's such a funny question because we go from how do I make my code as obnoxiously complex as possible so no one can follow it to, hey, I want to put it on GitHub so we can all share it together. It's like literally the opposites, going in opposite directions. Right? We get all types here, and I love the questions. These are great questions. Listen, if I can't answer the questions, I will tell you, but generally I can, or I can give you an answer to try to keep out of trouble, right? So if you know SQL, learn SQL. If you don't know SQL, don't bother right now until we know what they're doing with their new engine. And even then, I don't know it's going to be that useful. So someone goes, hey, should I go and learn MongoDB? And I'm like, because they may abstract it. You can't even see it. I'm going to be at pause. Kyle's going to cover up for the next couple of days. Kyle's great, very effective individual. He'll probably have unsanitary use of JSON, custom functions, and SQL, of course. So if you want to ask a question about SQL, definitely ask it tomorrow. But FileMaker fundamentally for David Angel it's not really a SQL backend, right? It doesn't really translate it to SQL and does stuff and brings it back. FileMaker, for it to do SQL, has to translate it, take your SQL statement, translate into FileMaker language, which it understands, which is closer to the scripting stuff, do it, then bring it back, and then give you the output in SQL. So you're adding a whole layer. The chief engineer at Claire talked to Clay Mackel about this thing. And he said he never understood why everyone was wrapped around the axle about how great it was, because it had to translate twice to work with SQL. They built a double. It's like if I don't speak Russian and someone's asking me a question in Russian, someone has to translate to English. I have a conversation, give it back to me in English, gets retranslated back to Russian. That's what it is. It's like, so how effective is it for me to do Russian? Unless there's something special. Not very. So that's that part of that thing. So that's not me. That's from I would consider the chief engineer at Claire's. All right, cool. Well, tomorrow, Kyle is there. Kyle is exciting. Margaret, what's on top if you want to pop the upcoming broadcast for tomorrow?
I will pull that up. So for our live training schedule, we have deep dive into advanced checkboxes and radio buttons for tomorrow.
Yeah, that'll be, I don't know. Are you doing web viewers with that? Kyle probably is. If he's around, he's probably.
I don't know if he's here.
Okay, maybe he's prepping for tomorrow.
That's probably. And then Friday is web viewer navigation features. Sorry.
I can assure you that web viewer is the thing on Friday. Probably day one will lead to day two would be my guess. His web viewer stuff is off the hook complex. So, good in a good way. Also, part of me, I asked him the other day, like, why are you doing this? He's like, oh, I thought it'd be cool and I could sell it. I'm like, okay, well, I don't think you can sell it. It's definitely cool. As long as you're entertained and happy, that's the benefit, right? But, you want to have people come behind you. That's the opposite, right? People do stuff for entertainment, right? Code and a certain thing for entertainment because they're learning a thing. I get that, right? But if you make things deliberately as complex as possible because you're entertained, and then you have junior people coming behind you, you're a really great coder as long as you don't get hit by a bus or go on vacation, right? I've been on vacation where everything comes off I was 25 and everything comes off the rails and I have to leave vacation with the wife. She was pissed. Why? Because I had not sufficiently made it simple enough for the people behind me to support it. I've done all this. Every possible stupid thing you can do in the FileMaker platform, I have personally done it. I'm not talking down to you. I'm just talking down to myself. Right. I mean, I'm looking at literally when we have this conversation about SQL and other stuff like this, I'm the guy who's already made the mistake. I'm like, well, if we really want to talk about it specifically, Richard Carlton, have screwed up everything here. So I'm giving you my personal experience of how, if you want to learn from me. Now, some people want to burn you say that stove is hot, don't touch it. They're going to burn their hand on the stove, even if I tell them not to. So some of you want to do it and just suffer with me. That's cool. But that's why 33 years, I'm not brilliant or talented. I just have fucked up more than most people. And I try to keep a catalog of all those mistakes, right? Right, Larry? That's how we survive in the Marines and get out, or survive the Army and get out, right? So, okay. That's it, folks. Any other questions, Margaret?
Nope. I think we are golden. So,
all right, everyone.
You have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Try to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap, stands in, throws it left for Amendola, reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10, rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.